Way to almost all the countries of Europe live together very lovingly, but have you ever thought that there can be some countries in Europe which do not like each other? Yes, there are some countries in Europe which the rest of the European countries disapprove of, whether it be their policies or their residents. Before we discuss some of the most hated countries in Europe, let us look at the hate against the European Union that exists within European countries. Another survey by the Pew Research Center in 2019 found that significant proportions of the population in some European countries have an unfavorable opinion about the EU. Surprisingly, France leads such countries, with 47% of its population expressing an unfavorable opinion about the EU. France is followed by Russia, where 44% of the people express unfavorable opinions about the EU. So in today's video, we are going to show you the top 10 most hated European countries. But before starting the video, I want to request you, we put our best efforts into creating every single video, so please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's start. Number 10, Switzerland. Switzerland generally does not have a reputation for being hated in Europe, but there are some criticisms or frustrations that some European countries might have towards Switzerland. These often stem from its political neutrality, economic policies, and unique position within Europe. Switzerland's long-standing neutrality, especially during major conflicts like World War II, has occasionally been viewed negatively. Some countries, particularly those that suffered during wars, view Switzerland's stance as an unwillingness to take a moral stand on important global issues. For example, during World War II, Switzerland was criticized for maintaining economic relations with Nazi Germany, even though it also took in refugees. Switzerland is not a member of the European Union, even though it is located in the heart of Europe. This often creates friction, as Switzerland benefits from many of the EU's advantages without being subject to all of its rules and regulations. This has sometimes led to resentment, especially regarding trade, labor movement, and taxation policies. Switzerland's strong banking secrecy laws have historically made it a haven for tax evasion and money laundering. Some European countries, particularly those with higher taxes, have been frustrated by wealthy individuals and corporations using Swiss banks to hide assets and avoid taxation. Number 9, Sweden. Sweden has a strong international reputation for advocating human rights, gender equality, environmental sustainability, and social welfare. However, this progressive stance can sometimes be perceived as moral superiority or virtue signaling. Some countries or groups may feel that Sweden is overly critical of others' policies, or that it promotes its values in a condescending manner. This can create friction, particularly when Swedish officials or media are vocal about human rights abuses or environmental issues in other countries. Sweden has historically had one of the most open immigration and refugee policies in Europe, particularly during the 2015 migrant crisis. This has led to polarized views within and outside the country. Some European countries, particularly those with more restrictive immigration policies, see Sweden's openness as problematic, leading to tensions in EU debates over refugee resettlement and border controls. Moreover, right-wing and nationalist groups in Europe often criticize Sweden's immigration policies, pointing to challenges such as integration, crime rates, and social tensions. Historically, Sweden, like Switzerland, has maintained a policy of military neutrality, especially during major conflicts like the Cold War and both World Wars. While Sweden has gradually shifted its defense policies, particularly after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, some countries have criticized Sweden for not taking a firmer stance earlier. This neutrality was sometimes perceived as not contributing enough to European collective security, especially in times of geopolitical tension. Sweden is a member of the European Union, but it has been somewhat skeptical of deeper integration. Sweden chose not to adopt the euro, maintaining its own currency, the Swedish krona. This reluctance to fully embrace the EU's financial systems has sometimes created tensions with more integrationist EU members like Germany and France. Sweden's participation in the Nordic model, which is often praised for its societal success, economic equality, and strong governance, can sometimes lead to a perception of Nordic exceptionalism. In some European countries, especially those with different cultural or political systems, this attitude may be seen as arrogant or out of touch with the challenges faced by other nations. Sweden is frequently a target of right-wing, nationalist, and populist movements across Europe. These groups often frame Sweden as a cautionary tale of liberal excess, particularly regarding immigration. multiculturalism, and gender equality. In these circles, Sweden is sometimes portrayed as a nation that has been ruined by its progressive policies, which can fuel negative attitudes. Number 8. Greece. Greece has faced criticism and negative perceptions from various European countries over the years, particularly during the financial crisis that began in 2009. The most significant source of resentment towards Greece in recent history stems from the European debt crisis. Greece's severe financial problems in the late 2000s and early 2010s resulted in multiple bailouts from the EU, the European Central Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. Many European countries, particularly in Northern Europe such as Germany, the Netherlands, and Finland, resented having to fund these bailouts, especially since they believed Greece's crisis was caused by fiscal mismanagement, corruption, and tax evasion. There was a perception that Greece had lived beyond its means, and that other European taxpayers were unfairly paying for Greece's mistakes. Countries like Germany and Finland, which contributed significantly to the bailout funds, pushed for harsh austerity measures in Greece, leading to protests and resentment on both sides. To secure financial aid, Greece was required to implement strict austerity measures, which included budget cuts, tax hikes, and reforms to pensions and public services. These measures were deeply unpopular in Greece and led to widespread protests and political instability. However, countries that funded the bailouts felt that Greece was not doing enough to reform its economy or live within its means. Many Greeks felt humiliated by the imposed austerity and believed that the EU, particularly Germany, was treating the country unfairly and ignoring the human cost of the economic crisis. This created a sense of mutual resentment between Greece and other European nations, particularly those advocating for tougher austerity. Greece has long-standing historical and territorial disputes with some of its neighboring countries, particularly Turkey and North Macedonia. These disputes occasionally spill over into European politics. For instance, Greece's opposition to the use of the name Macedonia by its northern neighbor before the Prespa Agreement in 2018 caused tension within the EU and NATO, as it delayed North Macedonia's accession to these organizations. And now let's move on to number 7, Italy. Italy has one of the largest public debts in Europe, and its economy has been relatively stagnant for years, with slow growth and persistent issues of high unemployment, particularly among young people. Italy's public debt is often seen as a risk to the stability of the Eurozone, and this has been a point of concern for countries like Germany, the Netherlands, and other Northern European countries that prioritize fiscal discipline. Some European countries fear that Italy's financial troubles could destabilize the Eurozone if its economy were to worsen. These concerns are heightened by Italy's reluctance to implement certain structural reforms, which has led to tensions between Italy and the more fiscally conservative countries in the EU. Italy has a long history of political instability, with frequent changes in government and a highly fragmented political landscape. This instability can create frustration in the EU, especially among countries that value political continuity and predictability. The rise of populist and anti-EU parties like the Five Star Movement and the League has further complicated Italy's relations with the EU, as these parties often push back against EU policies, particularly regarding immigration and fiscal rules. Italy itself is divided between a wealthier, more industrialized north and a poorer, less developed south. This economic disparity has implications for Italy's relations with the EU, as other European countries may view Italy's internal regional disparities as a domestic issue that should be addressed before seeking external financial support. The south of Italy is often associated with issues like organized crime, corruption, and a weak labor market, which have hindered Italy's overall economic progress. Number 6. Serbia. The wars in the Balkans during the 1990s, particularly the breakup of Yugoslavia and the conflicts in Bosnia, Croatia, and Kosovo, left deep scars in the region and across Europe. Serbia, as the largest and most dominant republic in the former Yugoslavia, was often seen as the aggressor during these conflicts, particularly due to the actions of Serbian military forces and paramilitary groups. Neighboring countries, particularly Bosnia, Croatia, and Kosovo, still harbor resentment towards Serbia due to the violence and destruction caused by the wars. This animosity extends into diplomatic relations and can influence how other European countries view Serbia's role in the region. Kosovo declared independence from Serbia in 2008 following the Kosovo War of 1998 to 1999, during which NATO intervened against Serbian forces. While many European countries and the United States have recognized Kosovo's independence, Serbia refuses to do so and continues to claim Kosovo as part of its territory. This issue has caused significant diplomatic tensions between Serbia and countries that recognize Kosovo's independence, such as Germany, France, the UK, and most EU member states. Serbia's refusal to acknowledge Kosovo's sovereignty has hindered its relations with these countries and complicated its bid to join the European Union. Serbia has maintained close political, economic, and military ties with Russia, which has caused friction with many European countries, especially in the wake of the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine. Serbia's reluctance to fully align with EU sanctions against Russia and its continued partnership with Moscow are seen as problematic by many EU countries, which are united in their condemnation of Russia's actions. Serbia's relations with its neighbors, particularly Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Kosovo, remain complicated due to the legacies of the Yugoslav wars and unresolved territorial and political issues. Number 5. Germany. The most significant source of historical resentment toward Germany stems from its role in the two world wars, particularly World War II. The atrocities committed during the Nazi regime, including the Holocaust, and the devastation caused by the wars across Europe left deep scars on many nations, particularly in Eastern and Western Europe. Although Germany has taken significant steps toward reconciliation, such as acknowledging its responsibility for the war and paying reparations, some countries, particularly those that suffered under Nazi occupation like Poland, France, and Greece, still harbor lingering resentment over the destruction and loss of life caused by Germany. Some countries, notably Greece and Poland, have periodically called for further reparations or compensation for damages caused during World War II. Germany, on the other hand, argues that it has already fulfilled its obligations through previous agreements, leading to tensions with those countries. Germany is the largest economy in Europe and plays a dominant role in shaping the policies of the European Union. This has led to accusations from some countries that Germany exerts too much influence over EU decision-making, particularly in areas like economic policy, migration, and fiscal rules. During the Eurozone crisis, Germany, along with other Northern European countries, pushed for strict austerity measures in countries that required financial bailouts, such as Greece, Spain, and Portugal. These policies were deeply unpopular in Southern Europe, where many people blame Germany for worsening the economic and social conditions in their countries. In 2015, during the height of the European migration crisis, Germany, under Chancellor Angela Merkel, adopted an open-door policy, allowing hundreds of thousands of refugees and migrants to enter the country. This decision had ripple effects across Europe, as many migrants sought asylum in other EU countries. Germany has often been criticized for not spending enough on defense, especially in the context of its obligations to NATO. The United States and some European countries, such as the UK and Poland, have urged Germany to increase its military spending to meet NATO's 2% of GDP target. Number 4. France. France's colonial past and its role in various European conflicts, particularly in the 19th and 20th centuries, have left a complicated legacy. France's colonial empire spanned Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia, and its actions during the colonial era left deep scars in many former colonies. France has had historical rivalries with many of its European neighbors, particularly Germany, the United Kingdom, and Spain. The Franco-German rivalry, which culminated in the World Wars, shaped much of European history in the 19th and 20th centuries. Though France and Germany are now close partners, these past conflicts left lasting memories, especially among older generations. France, along with Germany, is one of the driving forces behind the European Union. Some European countries feel that the EU is dominated by the Franco-German alliance, where decisions are often made by these two countries, without sufficient input from smaller or less powerful member states. This perceived imbalance has led to frustration among nations that feel sidelined in the decision-making process. Since his election in 2017, French President Emmanuel Macron has been a polarizing figure in Europe. Macron's ambitious vision for EU reform, his push for greater European integration, and his strong advocacy for climate change policies have led to tensions with certain European countries. Turkey's complex relationship with Europe has led to tensions and criticism from several European countries. The long history of conflicts between the Ottoman Empire and European nations has left a lingering legacy. The Ottoman Empire's expansion into Europe, especially its control over large parts of Eastern Europe, the Balkans, and even parts of Central Europe, created lasting animosities. Turkey's strategic location at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and the Middle East has led to its involvement in various geopolitical disputes, some of which involve European countries. Turkey's invasion and subsequent occupation of northern Cyprus in 1974 following a coup by Greek Cypriots aimed at unifying Cyprus with Greece remains a significant point of contention. Northern Cyprus is only recognized by Turkey, while the rest of the world, including the EU, sees it as an occupied territory. The issue has strained Turkey's relations with Greece, Cyprus, and the EU, with many European countries viewing Turkey's actions as illegal. Turkey and Greece also have ongoing disputes over territorial waters, airspace, and military rights in the Aegean. This has led to frequent diplomatic confrontations and military tensions, drawing in the EU and NATO in an effort to mediate the conflict. The migration crisis, particularly since the Syrian civil war, has been a major source of tension between Turkey and the European Union. Turkey hosts millions of refugees, and its geographic position makes it a key transit point for migrants trying to reach Europe. Turkey's status as a predominantly Muslim country, along with its attempts to balance secularism with religious conservatism under Erdogan, has sometimes caused friction with more secular or Christian-majority European countries. The United Kingdom has faced criticism and occasional resentment from some European countries, especially in recent years. While hate might be an exaggeration, certain political, historical, and cultural factors have contributed to negative perceptions of the UK and parts of Europe. The UK's decision to leave the European Union in 2016 through the Brexit referendum caused significant tension between the UK and its European neighbours. Brexit was viewed by many as a rejection of European unity, and the prolonged negotiation process led to frustration on both sides. The UK's imperial history and its role in various European conflicts have left a complicated legacy. The UK was a dominant global power for centuries, and its colonial ambitions, wars, and influence affected many European nations. While the UK was an ally to many European nations during both World Wars, its rivalry with Germany before and during the wars left lingering tensions. Though the relationship between the UK and Germany has improved significantly, older generations may still remember the conflicts, and there is a lingering sense of rivalry between the two nations in some spheres, particularly economic competition. The UK's powerful economy, particularly its financial sector, has led to economic competition with several European countries. London, as one of the world's leading financial centers, has often been seen as a rival to other European cities such as Paris, Frankfurt, and Amsterdam. The financial dominance of London, particularly before Brexit, was a point of friction with other European financial hubs that felt overshadowed by the City of London. Post-Brexit, European cities like Paris and Frankfurt have sought to attract business from London, further intensifying competition and leading to some resentment over the perceived economic advantages the UK enjoyed during its time in the EU. Number 1. Russia. Russia's history of imperialism, wars, and invasions in Europe has left a lasting impact on various countries. The legacy of the Soviet Union's actions during and after World War II still resonates deeply in many Eastern European countries. Many Eastern European countries experienced Soviet occupation, which included repression, forced collectivization, and mass deportations. These historical grievances fuel ongoing distrust and resentment toward Russia. Russia's recent military actions, particularly its annexation of Crimea in 2014, and its support for separatists in eastern Ukraine, have alarmed many European nations. The ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine, fueled by Russian military support for separatist groups, has led to significant loss of life and instability. European countries, particularly those near Ukraine, view Russia's actions as a direct threat to their own security. European countries have increasingly been targets of Russian cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns, which aim to undermine democratic processes and sow discord within nations. Allegations of Russian interference in various elections across Europe, including those in the US and France, have raised alarm. Such actions are seen as efforts to destabilize democracies and promote pro-Russian candidates or parties. Russia's support for authoritarian regimes and its own domestic policies are often viewed negatively by European countries that value democracy and human rights. Russia's military intervention in Syria to support Bashar al-Assad's regime has drawn condemnation from European countries, particularly those advocating for human rights and democratic reforms. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, many European countries reassessed their defense strategies and increased military spending, which reflects the perception of an imminent threat from Russia. The strong support for Ukraine from many European countries, both militarily and financially, signifies a united front against perceived Russian aggression. This solidarity has further solidified negative perceptions of Russia among EU members. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.